It is the 25th of July 2024 and you're right on time for K24's Newton being on a Thursday. We'll be focusing on the hijacked Gen Z revolution. Remember, 4 top ODM officials that, of course, the 2 deputy party leaders, that is Ali Hassan Joho, who is also the former Mombasa governor, and as well Kakamega former governor, Wycliffe Oparanya, have been nominated to take over CS positions. And as well, still in the same ODM party, the minority leader, that is Opiyo Wandayi, has also been nominated to take over the energy docket. And as well, we have, that is John Mbadi, who is the chairperson of ODM party. He will now be the Treasury Cabinet Secretary if approved by Parliament. But remember, the conversation is, this revolution, actually, ODM has not been part of it. And so it's considered a hijack, considering ODM or Raila Odinga has not been part of this whole conversation, but he has already secured 4 slots. He's now receiving a serious and massive backlash from the public. That is what will form a better part of a conversation this morning with my key guest in studio. That is the former Chief Administrative Secretary, Zach Kinuthia, will be right here on this panel. As well, Shakira Wafula, an active citizen. She has been at the forefront of the Gen Z demonstrations. She's considered one of the, of course, bold protesters, being, of course, a young lady. And as well, Kasmuel Makori, revolutionary artist. He was here on Monday, and he warned that if Odinga goes ahead and takes over the 4 cabinet slots, then it will be automatic. He will have penned down his political obituary. That is the conversation that we'll be having this morning. Start the conversation via social media platforms at K24 TV, at Joel Church, as well on our SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. We'll also be focusing on what is on our dailies this morning. But remember, your feedback is important, and I'll be sampling it right here on K24's Newton. But let's begin, first of all, with these stories where President William Ruto has finally unveiled his final list of CS's nominees after, of course, naming an 11-member cabinet that actually, after naming an additional 10 members to his new cabinet. In the final 10, Ruto has included senior ODM officials among 5 other nominees from previous cabinet. Ian Kitani brings us the latest on the now official Ruto-Raila coalition government.
4 days after naming his first 11 batch for cabinet slots, President William Ruto has today nominated another batch of 10 CSs for vetting in a bold move that includes 4 senior ODM lieutenants. Ruto, in what looks like an alliance with ODM Supremo Raila Odinga, nominated 2 ODM deputy party leaders Hassan Ali Joho and Wycliffe Oparanya, ODM chairperson John Mbadi, and the leader of the minority party in the National Assembly, James Opiyo Wandayi. 2 weeks after President William Ruto was seen with Azimio leader Raila Odinga during the signing of the IEBC bill into law, speculation was rife on a possible deal between the duo. However, after today's final list of nominations, the speculations have been put to rest, with ODM now seen as being in coalition with the Kenya Kwanza government, pending the approval of the nominees by the National Assembly. ODM chairperson John Mbadi has been nominated into the Finance and National Planning docket, with his nomination raising eyebrows. Mbadi has an economic background and is currently serving as the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee. In the run-up to the general elections, Mbadi left tongues wagging after dropping out of the race to be ODM's gubernatorial flag bearer in Homa Bay County, thereby opting to support Gladys Wanga. With the Ruto-Raila partnership raising questions, Odinga's close allies, including Siaya Governor James Orengo, opposing any deal, Mbadi outrightly told off the former senator his sentiments, bringing about speculations that his name was up for nomination, speculations that were confirmed Wednesday afternoon.
We cannot kill our people. And the time when we are mourning them, we are looking for officers. That cannot happen. We must first deal with injustice. When we say Ruto must go with all his people. The entire government must go. Nobody is going to remain there.
Mbadi was vocal in opposing the dismissed Ruto cabinet during their vetting in 2022, insisting that 60% of them were not fit to serve the people of Kenya. Odinga's other close allies, Ali Hassan Joho, the former governor of Mombasa County, and his Kakamega counterpart, Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, have both ripped big from the ODM Kenya Kwanza deal after they were nominated into the mining and blue economy and cooperatives dockets, respectively. The duo had served as minister and assistant minister in the Kibaki cabinet and was set to be appointed as CSs in the event Raila Odinga would have clinched the presidency. James Opiyo Wandayi, who a few weeks ago castigated Ruto over the Finance Bill 2024, just a month after he came under fire for accompanying President Ruto in his official tour to the United States, has been nominated into the energy docket. If approved, his appointment will mean the people of Ugunja will have to go to the ballot to pick his successor. The appointment of the four has raised concerns within the opposition coalition, a day after ODM issued a statement denying allegations that they were having negotiations with President Ruto's Kenya Kwanza. Apart from the four, President Ruto has renominated 5 other members who served in the previous cabinet, including Kipchumba Murkomen, who has been nominated into the sports docket, Alfred Mutua, the nominee for Labour, Rebecca Miano, the nominee for tourism, Justin Muturi, nominee for public service and human capital, and Salim Mvurya, the nominee for trade and investment. The 9 will be vetted alongside Stella Soy Langat, who has been nominated to serve in the gender, culture, arts and heritage docket. Soy was born and raised in Bomet County. With those nominated into cabinet swimming in joy, it is agony for those dropped by President William Ruto, including Moses Kuria, Zakaria Njeru, Eliud Owalo, Aisha Juma, Simon Chelugoi, Ababu Namwamba, Ezekiel Machogu and Florence Bore. Eyes now turn to Parliament for the vetting process as Kenyans continue to ponder on what next. Ian Keitani, K24.
The Kenyan political scene has been characterized with the double standards and backstabbing. Some of those appointed from the opposition to the CS position had vowed not to never work with President William Ruto on grounds of principles. Some terming the Kenya Kwanza government as corrupt. President Ruto, on the other hand, actually promised his supporters to never allow any handshake in Kenya Kwanza. But how things change fast? We take a look at what the changes actually over time that ushers in Odinga's 4th handshake since Moi's regime.
Waliletea fujo Moi mpaka wakapata cooperation. Wakakuja wakasumbua Kibaki mpaka wakachukua nusu mkate. Wamekuja wakazungusha Uhuru hapo mpaka wakaenda na handshake, program yetu ikapotea, BBI ikaendelea, tukazama, tukaingia kwa madeni. Sasa mimi nimewaambia, hii serikali hii, mimi nawaambia hii serikali ni ya mahasla. Hakuna nusu mkate, hakuna handshake, hakuna hiyo borojo. Hawa wananchi walimaliza kazi ya viongozi tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8, wakagawa viti yote. Viti ya viongozi ilimalizika tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8. Wale wakupata MCA walipata. Wale wakupata bunge, wale wakupata sijui governor, wale wakupata rais, imeisha. Ama kuna kiti mulibakisha? Si viti mulimaliza, muligawa ikaisha. Sasa ile kazi imebakia ni kazi ya hawa wananchi. Tujenge barabara, tujenge soko, tupange mambo ya matibabu, tupange mambo ya biashara, tupange mambo ya kilimo, tuondoe njaa. Hiyo ndio kazi imebaki. Ama namna gani jameni?
Tulikuwa tumemwambia ile mzee ya kitendawili ataleta kisirani. Tulimwambia ameletea huyu rais kisirani ati anataka handshake. Mnataka handshake? Sasa rais amekaa ngumu na mimi nikakaa ngumu zaidi. Mnataka tukae ngumu ama tukubali maneno hiyo mtu? Tukae ngumu.
Mimi Hassan Joho nikitaka kuongea, mimi I don't even dream of engaging with them. Ati huyu akitaka aje aongee sio na mimi niongee na Ruto nini? Mimi nikamtafute atanipa nini? Wilbaro. Nilipeleka Wilbaro mimi la kimtaani la kucheza nalo zamani.
Hii wameua sasa karibu zaidi ya 100. Mtu kama hawa mikono yao imejaa damu, mikono yao imejaa damu. Hatuwezi kuongea na hao watu. Hayo mimi nasema no dialogue, no dialogue, no dialogue, no dialogue, no dialogue, no dialogue. Tunataka action.
Our former boss made the mistake. He brought people into government who did not believe in his vision. So wakakuja wakakoroga serikali yake. We cannot make that mistake. And I want to confirm, because some people wanasema, oh, labda president anataka handshake, oh, Rigijidi hataki. Let me tell you, President Ruto is even more strict about this handshake nonsense than I am. He cannot accept. The handshake experiment was the worst thing to happen in the politics of this country. And there is no leader who has won an election with a comfortable margin who will be out of his mind to go and bring his opponents to come to his government.
President William Ruto appears to be listening to the demands of the Gen Z protesters. If some of the decisions he has been making are anything to go by, on Wednesday, the president promised the government actually to support the families of those who lost their lives in the recent protests. This is in addition to the release of all arrested protesters not implicated in criminal offenses. David Kagina tells us more.
In the wake of nationwide protests led by the Gen Zs that entered their fifth week on Tuesday, demonstrators listed demands aimed at restoring trust and accountability among elected leaders and the executive. These demands include the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024, removal of cabinet secretaries, reduction of government expenditure and wastage, reconstitution of the IEBC, and increased accountability from government officials. Following weeks of protests, additional demands for criminal justice reforms emerged after at least 50 people were killed and many others injured owing to excessive police force, with others arrested. While President Ruto has met some demands, including disbanding his cabinet, withdrawing the finance bill and signing legislation to reconstitute the IEBC, protests continued, with demonstrators insisting that all demands be met. On Wednesday, the president addressed more demands, including calling for the release of all arrested protesters not implicated in criminal offenses. He also directed government agencies to generate a comprehensive report within 30 days on businesses affected by the protests. The president pledged the government's support to the families of those who lost their lives in the protests, urging the police to operate without violating citizens' rights. Police brutality was a top priority in the president's list of demands.
All breaches and violations by police officers must be handled expeditiously through due process, with a view to giving Kenyans a police service that upholds the highest standards of integrity.
To enhance accountability and combat corruption, the president proposed amendments to the Evidence Act to limit investigations and prosecution of corruption and economic crimes to 6 months, and also recommend overhauling of the Witness Protection Act to restore citizen confidence in whistleblowing. For increased accountability, the president set a 90-day time frame for amending the Public Finance Management Act and the Procurement and Disposal Act to close procurement loopholes identified as corruption epicenters.
I have engaged with the parliamentary leadership and asked Parliament to expeditiously pass the Conflict of Interest Bill, with the explicit caveat that I shall veto any bill enacted if it does not establish the highest bar with respect to accountability, integrity, and anti-corruption.
Additionally, President Ruto pledged to work with Parliament to ensure transparency in annual tax expenditure, especially VAT refunds.
Within 90 days, I will be working with Parliament to provide a legislative and regulatory framework to make this process transparent, open, and accountable, with a view to reducing this huge public expenditure and direct savings from this exercise to the productive sectors.
David Kagina, K24 TV, Nairobi.
Still in the same breath, leaders and Kenyans across the country have aired mixed reactions following President Ruto's nomination of 10 cabinet secretaries on Wednesday. Initially, the president had nominated 10 cabinet secretaries and the Attorney General, whose name was later on dropped from the list presented to Parliament for vetting. The president is yet to name his AG nominee.
Mimi kama gavana wa jimbo la Kwale napenda nimshukuru Mheshimiwa Rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya Daktari William Samoei Ruto kwa kuweza kumteua tena Mheshimiwa Mvurya katika Wizara ya Biashara, Viwanda na Uwekezaji, na pia nimshukuru Mheshimiwa Rais kwa kuweza kumpatia nafasi Mheshimiwa Hassan Ali Joho katika Wizara ya Madini na Uchumi Samawati. Sisi kama wapwani tunasema ni shukrani sana Mheshimiwa Rais na tutaendelea kuunga mkono.
Kenya haikuwa inataka political solution, ilikuwa inataka economical solution. So vile tunaendelea inakaa hata hii mambo yote kuvuja cabinet, hii ilikuwa tu siasa.
Ni mmoja wale alifanya wakasirike. Mtu anaenda kwa media anajigamba mwenye amenunua saa 1300 ama 1700, naye tumemwona hapo amerudishwa.
Akituitisha kura vile alisema hakuna mambo ya handshake, na kama wananchi hiyo haijatufurahisha kwa sababu tumeona wengine wamechanguliwa kutoka hiyo chama ya Raila ODM.
Nashukuru sana Rais kwa kuchagua viongozi, lakini mimi ningependa kuambia Raila Odinga hakufanya kitu ya maana, juu angejulisha wengine alafu ndio aone kama anaweza unda serikali na hiyo mrengo ingine ya Kenya Kwanza.
Lakini wamechokoza Gen Z, walikuwa wamesema wataki Murkomen na amewapatia yeye ndiye akue CS wao sasa wa youth and sports.
Shikilia hapo, ni si rahisi kupata mtu mwenye anachukua hata opposition walimpinga kuwaleta incorporate into the government for the sake of this country.
Mimi kama Gen Z napinga juu kuna vijana wale wenye wamesoma lakini hawana kazi. Angechukua vijana zura mpya ambaye yenye hawajawahi kufanya kwa serikali na watu wakilishe.
Kwa maoni yangu kama Gen Z, nasema Ruto hajatupendeza kabisa. Hii mambo ya kuthreaten na kutufanya kaa sini wajenga ni bana. In Kenya we have a constitution and he has to follow it.
Kutoka mawaziri akachukua watu kutoka ODM na ageka kwa watu kutaka hivyo, si kama Gen Z. Sisi tutaka atusikize mambo yenye tulimwambia hivyo.
Angekuwa ametufikiria mtu kama Matiani amweke kwa education, maybe maneno inaweza kuwa at least iko sawa, lakini kwake amejaribu lakini amerudisha the same people yenye tunaona hii vijana walikuwa hataki.
Alistahili kurudisha nyuso mpya. Sasa watu wenye amerudisha kama kuna Murkomen, kuna Aden Duale, hao angewaweka kando, at least alete nyuso mpya.
Alidissolve cabinet lakini so far amerudisha wale maisha ni kama tulitokea kazi bure. Tukaandamana kazi bure juu wenye tulikuwa tukiandamana watolewe, wamerudishwa, wengine wao kubadilishwa, which is hakuna kazi so far amefanya. Tumeona hii inaweza kuwa ni substantial.
Alisema hakuna mambo ya handshake, na kama wananchi hiyo haijatufurahisha.
Rais fanya kazi na hao watu, wafanye kazi na Raila, hata Kalonzo akija muingize kwa serikali tufanye kazi ili Kenya yetu iendelee mbele. Hiyo ndio kitu ile ya muhimu na ndio kitu ambayo tunaweza kujivunia sisi kama watu wa Kenya.
Na natoa kongole kwa Rais Ruto kwa kutuchagulia kiongozi wetu ambao ni sultani, na sisi kama wakazi wa Pwani tunamwamini sultani kwa kazi hiyo anaiweza.
Waunge mkono kuchaguliwa kwa Joho. Tusitengane, tusiwe mbali, tushikane, tuwe kitu kimoja. Na tunaomba tupate waziri mwingine kutoka Kilifi County.
Tunafurahi sisi kama vijana, tumemaliza skuli kitambo, tujapata kazi, tuna imani kuwa Joho atatufanyia marekebisho.
Keep sending in your views. Of course, I'll be sampling them on this program before wrapping up. Away from that, hundreds of Zimmerman residents are expressing outrage over the trauma inflicted by recent attacks on their neighborhoods, marked by prolonged gunfire and tear gas on Tuesday evening. Despite repeated appeals from citizens and the government for police to exercise restraint, residents claim that law enforcers continue to act aggressively against them. And our reporter Ben Kirira spoke with the Zimmerman residents and filed this report.
Live bullets zinarushwa huku.
On Tuesday evening,
Zimmerman residents faced events that will be forever engraved in their memories.
Haijaitu affect venye ilitu affect jana. So jana watu wajalala, hata usaizi ukitokea stage huko juu na shina tu kisneeze.
Hiyo kutumia excessive force kwa kurusha tear gas mpaka ndani ya manyumba, hiyo tumekataa. Juu sasa iliumiza mpaka watoto. Watoto wamekuwa na tension. Mtoto wako na uoga kisikia hizo masauti zikilia.
Residents describe the night as filled with terror and violence. The loud blasts from tear gas and bullets, as seen in video circulating on social media, have led to significant trauma, particularly for children.
Isikiza vijana ni wengi sana. Na unaona wanaiba chakula kwa sababu watu wako na njaa. Ni chakula imeibiwa hapa. Mtu anapewa kigunia ya mchele, ya maharagwe anakimbia naye juu ni njaa.
Residents in the base area of Zimmerman shared their strong resentment towards the police approach in countering protesters during the Tuesday anti-government demonstrations and ultimately the president's manner of addressing the rage by Kenyans.
We just followed you tukifikiria that there is a thing that you're going to do for us. Whereas sahi, we seeing nothing. We just seeing youth dying. We only seeing women dying. We only seeing businesses being demolished.
Along the South Road in Zimmerman, a minimart was looted. It took police intervention to prevent the public from exercising mob justice on the looters who had been locked inside the minimart.
Number one, the president is not listening. Number two, amekuwa too bossy. Because the moment, number three, he is not reading the mood ya wananchi.
Tuesday night's events have placed the police service under scrutiny for the ruthlessness displayed towards residents. Calls are now being made for the police to focus on dispersing looters who infiltrate demonstrations rather than indiscriminately using force on innocent residents. Ben Kirera, K24, Nairobi.
On to other news, journalists across the country have protested against police brutality towards members of the press during their coverage of the anti-government protest in Nairobi. The procession stopped at Jogoo House to deliver a petition to the Acting Inspector General Douglas Kanja, which was received by the police spokesperson Rizila Onyango. Here now is Majibu Kisao with the details.
Journalists across the country have today held peaceful protests against police brutality, targeting those covering anti-government demonstrations and other forms of intimidation. Carrying placards bearing different messages, the procession started at Nation Center before making a stop at Jogoo House to deliver a petition and later marching their way to Parliament buildings.
Kitendo ambacho kilitokea pale Nakuru kwa mmoja wetu kupigwa risasi bila shaka si cha kupendeza. Na pia katika shughuli ambazo tumekuwa nazo hapa jijini Nairobi tangu maandamano yaanze, baadhi ya maafisa wa polisi ambao tuliweza kuwashuhudia, wengine walikuwa wanaturushia vitoa machozi.
Uhuru huo hawajatupa kwa 100%. Bado wanaufinya kidogo. Naweza sema labda ni kwa 70% kama 70 hivi ambao tumepata uhuru. Kwa hiyo hii 30% watuachie tufanye kazi yetu.
When we have police officers who appear to be working with the blessings of the government to harass the media, to do so many other things that touch on that very freedom, it is a threat to our very democracy.
The arrest of veteran journalist Macharia Gaitho on July 17th and the shooting of Media Max journalist Catherine Wanjiri Kariuki sparked the call for protest.
Sisi kazi yetu kupeana ujumbe kwa wanaotazama, kwa mtazamaji, makosa gani ambao tumefanya.
Sisi ndo the messenger, hakuna haja ya kuattack the messenger. Tunachoomba tu ni tushirikishwe tu, tupewe usalama wetu, tusivamiwe wakati tunatekeleza majukumu yetu ya kikatiba.
Led by the Kenya Editors Guild President Zubeida Kananu and the Kenya Union of Journalists Secretary General Eric Oduor, members of the Fourth Estate have also petitioned for payment of media dues as well as a disbandment of government advertising agency.
Leo ni siku yetu kuwasilisha hoja zetu, kuwasilisha malalamiko yetu, kwa sababu wanahabari nchini Kenya wamenyanyaswa kwa kipindi kirefu sana. Tunataka haki. Pesa ambazo serikali imekataa kulipa media, tunataka zilipwe.
We are telling them that
no to media censorship. We do not want to see also media being censored all the time. We do not want a situation where government goes without paying the media its dues. We want our rights and freedoms as enshrined under Article 34 of the Constitution to be respected, and that is why we are saying again, Godha tena.
Majibu Kitsao for K24 TV, Nairobi.
Well, and as promised, being on a Thursday, today we focus on the hijacked Gen Z revolution. And I invite your comments via social media platforms at K24 TV, at Joel Church as well, on our SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens already. My guest is in studio, and two more will be joining us shortly. That is Shakira Wafula. She is an active citizen. Kasmuel Makori, a revolutionary artist, and as well, Zach Kinuthia, former Chief Administrative Secretary, will be right here to engage in this discussion, especially with the 4 ODM top officials joining the Ruto-led government. What are your views? I'll be sampling some of them before wrapping up New Dawn this morning. We'll take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.